But first, I know it can often seem like navel-gazing when the media talks about contract deals with social media giants like Meta. But the reality is the power these tech companies hold extends way beyond payment disputes and impacts the control of information, what we're allowed to debate, alternative views like you often see here on Sky News about critical issues like last year's Voice referendum. Let's not forget the work of so-called online fact-checkers who shut down news sources that supported the no case. That took me as an example off Facebook. You weren't allowed to hear from me about the Uluru statement until my good boss and management team here at Sky News appealed and got us back online. Now, if they had their way, we would never have debated the breadth of what the Voice to Parliament meant. Today, former Federal Treasurer, now of course Chairman of the Nine Network, Peta Credlin, he weighed in on the Meta dispute and he said, "This is quite an existential moment for Australian media." Costello went on as far as to say that Meta was a monopolist which needed government regulation. To discuss this and more, I'm joined now by former Deputy Prime Minister of Australia, John Anderson. John, it's great to see you as always. For me, this debate is less about, fair enough for some to run the argument, fair pay for the content from news companies like this put onto Facebook. For me, my great concern is the very dangerous place we get into when a group of billionaires in the Silicon Valley gets to decide what information Australians can have access to.
Well, I share your concerns, and we ought to keep in mind that what you've just called billionaires, many of them are, in fact, the wealthiest people the planet has ever known, both in relative terms and in absolute terms. They are staggeringly wealthy. Overwhelmingly, they are highly ideological as well. Not all of them, but most of them are. And they're also heavily invested in, if I can put it this way, green energy. So if you look at California, you have what Joel Kotkin calls a new feudalism, where you have these astonishingly wealthy people at the top. In the name of environmental action, manufacturing's been forced out and has gone to other American states and China. So the middle class is gone. And then you have 80% of the emerging jobs, such as they are in California, are low paid. And in America, that means low paid. It really is a feudal sort of look. And so that gives you an idea of the sort of ideology that will be supported if these people are able to run riot and control what we hear, what we're fed, what we're not fed. I think it's deeply concerning. I do have a worry, like Peta Credlin, about what's happening to our media. It is plainly the case that it's hard to attract professionals and to pay them properly. That needs to be addressed. There's another aspect. We don't trust our mainstream media much anymore because they're so ideological. And the journalists and media schools need to ask themselves some hard questions about how well they're training people as well.
What do you make of these proposed anti-discrimination laws on the table in Queensland? A lot of religious groups, John, are up in arms about them. They say the laws as they stand would seriously impact their ability to run their schools according to their values. Surely schools that have got a faith base are right to be able to hire staff that accord with those beliefs and sack them if they don't.
Well, I see it as an attack on freedom of association. I see it as an attack on faith, particularly Christian faith, and I see it as an attack on parenting. So it's bad news all around. And then you stop and think about the hypocrisy of it all. Most of us enjoy free association with like-minded people, and we regard it as fundamental to our freedoms. So do politicians. You've worked in politics for a long time. You know full well that no political office will have in its ranks or tolerate in its ranks people who disagree fundamentally with the values of that office. So there's a double standard here. The politicians, at the behest of activists, certain politicians, are wanting to push onto us something that they would never wear themselves. And I must say this, I wonder how long it'll be before parents really do break out and say, enough is enough. We want our right to responsibly raise our own children according to what we think is right and wrong, and we don't want the waters polluted by state-backed activism all the time.